Hello everybody, welcome to the Nuclear Nightmare Roadmap video part 2. I'm making this video because it's been quite a while since the original roadmap and we've got a lot of new stuff coming up, and I just want to share the timeline with everybody and make sure we're moving in the right direction, because I also want the community to be a part of this as well. So if there's anything you feel like you want us to change or you want to see, or if you're watching this video just to be in tune with what we're working on, that's what I'm making it for. And if you don't know me already, my name is Benjamin. I'm the founder of BG Productions and the project lead. When I first started on Nuclear Nightmare, it was just my single project by myself as a passion project, and over time it's grown into a full indie team, although still very small, and I still do wear many hats, such as doing all the programming. We are now more of a team, which allows us to take it a bit further. So anyway, without further ado, let's jump right into it. So the first slide we got here is the next map after the Forest Part 1, which is the update that had just been released, which was obviously the Forest map. This next map we're working on is basically a smaller version of Low Island. Essentially was supposed to be the concept around it. We do have my man George, who's our level designer, so I'm now able to just kind of focus on programming and all of the features while he's able to cook up the maps for me in the background, which makes it a lot easier to get content out. And at the time, when we were finishing up the Forest map, I had the idea of doing a smaller Low Island, and I essentially got him to start working on that, and that's where we're at now. Now the Forest map's out, and this is what we had in the pipeline. Now you might say, well, hey, I thought we were going to see Forest Part 2 before another map. Well, that's essentially why, one of the reasons why I wanted to make this video is because for the Forest Part 2, we want to redo every single player model in the game, and it's a large task. And basically, I don't want to put on pause the entire development of the game just to wait for player models to get finished. And additionally, while we're making these player models, we're also streamlining the way we're doing basically clothing for any human-like characters, and so that pipeline needs to be finished before we can continue on adding to the forest, such as adding the cultists. I'll get into that in a second. But anyway, for this map, it's way more facility based, way more interiors. That's kind of the whole concept around it, is that it's supposed to be smaller on the outside and largely focus on actual interiors. There's a lot of fun gameplay to have in a lot of those closer corner locations, and I think it makes it more exciting overall. A lot more scary and intense moments can happen in there. However, the one drawback I think we had with the forest is that because there's so much density on the outside, there's so many trees, you don't really have you can't drive as many vehicles, right? You can only really take a snowmobile. Whereas this is, once again, in the Antarctic, you'll be able to fly helicopters, you'll be able to drive snowcats and snowmobiles, but like I said, a large majority of it will be facility based. And a lot of unique parts of the facility as well, not stuff you've seen in the other maps. A lot newer locations to these facility-like areas. So the second thing for this map we want to do is basically more in-depth objectives. So with this map being smaller, and to get context for the size of it, it'll be slightly smaller than the forest, and obviously largely facility-based. And because of this, we want to do some more objectives that are a bit more in-depth to make the experience a bit more fleshed out, I guess you could call it, right? Because if we have the same objectives where you're running up and pressing E on something to go take a photo, it's going to be a pretty boring map, given that it's smaller, right? And I think generally gameplay could just improve in that area as a whole. Maybe even doing some kind of joint task between players would be cool. So that's what we're thinking in terms of objectives. Now, the most exciting part that I'm personally really excited for is the new boss enemy. So basically, right here on the right, this photo you see is the concept art, lovely 3D modeler and animator Magnus has drawn up for us, and it's the design we're going with for this enemy. It's a bit like the Apex and the original map, well, not the original map, but the forest. And I think that's the direction we want to go in. We want to have all that classic spawn pool of enemies every time, but then each map will have their own unique boss enemy as part of it. I think is going to be the style we go for. So if you look at Low Island, we have the massive worm. The forest has obviously the Apex, and for this map, it will be this guy. Now, the cool thing about this guy is it's not just going to be him randomly spawning. It's basically going to be that he's going to be trapped in a cutout area of ice, right? Somebody has gone and drilled this piece of ice out of the ground, and he is lodged inside of it, and it's slowly melting. And there's going to be a series of side quests that you can follow in order to stop the ice from pretty much melting, letting him escape. And then when he does escape, all hell will break loose, because same sort of thing as the Apex, right? This is a guy you cannot stun. So I'm really excited by this. It's inspired from a deleted scene in The Thing. That was kind of the inspiration for this guy. If you know the scene, you know. Anyway, so that's it for the boss enemy. It is also going to be, obviously, like I said, based in Antarctica once again. Therefore, you'll have all the helicopters and snowcats. And then additionally, now one thing about the Forest Part 2 we promised is that we were going to redo player models, right? And one of the main reasons for redoing player models is mainly so that it's a more fluent look when you're actually playing as the character. Because it's not a secret that right now the camera is essentially just attached to the worldview model of your character. With the new enhanced player models, it would be that you would have the first person arms, and that would basically stop you from being able to look through walls and whatnot, and just overall make it feel less clunky in general. And I think that's a much needed change, especially now that we've changed the shooting to be in the style of more of a first person game rather than the more unique way we did it in the past. But that being said, with us having to wait for the player models, since we're not going to be able to get the new player models out in the next update, what I'm thinking is I'll find a way to try and make the current existing models work with the true first person camera. So that would mean obviously not being able to look through doors and walls and whatnot if you just lean over with a gun out. I don't know how possible that will be. It might be that I have to wait on player models because we need a specific first person animation for certain things, but I guess we'll just see how it goes. It would also mean that you wouldn't have that extreme head bob that you would normally see. So I know some people literally can't play games that have that sort of effect. So if you are one of those people, this will be great for you. So anyway, that's it for the next map. Now I haven't put release dates on the slide just because last time we did, it was more like an internal date of when we thought we could work on something without it being worked on at all. So you look back and you look at those dates I put there and you go, oh my God, well, how did you ever think you were going to get it done then? Because it came out so much later. And that's essentially the reason I'm doing it, because a lot of people look at the roadmap and they go, okay, it must come out at the date they put, but that's not necessarily true, right? Because a lot of unexpected things happen in development all the time. Now, that being said, this map, I probably could put a release date on it just because we have the map finished. The actual level designer has finished the map itself. It just needs content now. It needs the objectives. It needs the enemy. And I don't know how much time that's going to take. It's hard to say. But generally, for a rough estimate, I want to say getting close to the end of the month. I hope, but don't quote me on that one. We'll just see as it goes. We'll of course release a teaser trailer showing off the map, and in that you'll get the true release date of when it's going to come out. Anyway, so that's it for the next coming up map, and then for Forest Part 2, we're going to do the reworked player models for all skins, of course. Like I said, the only reason we're doing the next map instead of Forest Part 2 next is just because it takes so much time to redo every single one of these player models. So it makes more sense to get the current map that our level designer has finished, I'm cleared up to start working on, and we can get that out, and then our modeler has enough time to really focus on the player models and make them as good as possible. In the right, you can see here some screenshots from some of the models he's created. This is a rework of the default skin that exists in the game. These screenshots do not have gloves currently or the mask in them. They will. This is just a couple screenshots from some pants and the jacket. Like I said, they're still being worked on, so in this screenshot you're seeing them untextured, and you're not seeing the full thing because they're still in development. But I think that will make the game look significantly more polished once you're not seeing as many of those janky animations, and the player models are a lot higher quality overall. I think that's one of the most janky looking parts of the game. What makes it sort of feel really clunky at its current state is truly the player models and animations. So I think this will be a big difference once it comes out. So anyway, we also have the cultist enemy type. I have seen a few people in the comments and they said, oh no, they're gonna add cultists, it's so unlike the vibe of this game. I don't think those people watched the original roadmap, so in this one I just wanted to clear that up. So for the record, we're not doing some kind of stereotypical cult guy that's wearing some kind of hood and robe or something. This is going to be basically a portion in the forest map. We can see those Inuit hideouts, and basically a portion of the Inuit population would have gone and formed this religion around the virus, right? And that was the whole kind of concept. So they won't look like stereotypical cultists. It will most likely look like somebody wearing a hooded jacket with fur and whatnot, and pants and that sort of thing. And basically, again, if you haven't watched the first roadmap video, these enemies will basically be normal at first. They'll just roam around in their groups, and then if you do run into them in their default state, they will run up and they'll try to knock you out and kidnap you essentially, and you'll get strung up. For example, you may wake up strung up to a tree or something, and you might have to cut yourself down, that sort of thing. And then, of course, they can get infected like a normal player. So if they come into contact with the enemy, let's say, and the enemy, I'm not sure how it will work yet. I'm not sure if it will be when an enemy just runs past them, they'll have a chance to get infected, or the enemy may choose to go after them and attack them. I think most likely the latter. So yeah, if the enemy were to attack them, then technically they could become infected. And then if they were roaming around, one could just burst out, become infected, and kill all the rest of the cultists, or turn them all infected as well. So you would have a possibility of walking around, and maybe instead of seeing a group of cultists, if it's been a few nights in the forest, instead of just seeing a normal group of cultists, they may all be infected. And in which case they would try to kill you instead of trying to kidnap you and string you up by a tree or whatnot. Anyway, so more events in lore, definitely. For example, when I say lore, on Low Island, right, we had a few computers, and these computers had notes on them, and they explained certain things that were going on. This is an element that I wanted to add to the forest that's missing right now, just because at the time it was really necessary. We needed to get some content out as quick as possible. So we didn't really have the option to sit back and go, okay, we're going to focus in on the lore. It's more about speed at the time. But now that it's out, we have the time to actually focus on that kind of thing. So it'd be nice to have, some kind of notes in there, maybe some kind of computer where you can again view different documents and find out what actually happened here. Um, then additionally, I want to do some kind of water bridges for lake crossings. It does kind of suck when you're driving a snowmobile and you're not at one of the larger locations like the underground power plant in Lumberyard Island. Uh, and having to just ditch it there and run across the icebergs. Although the icebergs are very cool, it's just kind of sucks when one of the larger parts of Nuclear Nightmare is truly the vehicle driving. I think it's one of the things that makes us really unique. So now the challenging part about it is how do you make that water bridge exist without making players just avoid the icebergs entirely. Maybe we'll have it so it's some kind of automated bridge. So for example, you have to get off the snowmobile, run up, hit a button, and it will be one of those automated bridges where it comes down and smooths out so you can drive over it, and when it's not in use it will be up. Or maybe it's even more in depth than that. It will take a bit more skill. Maybe it could be gas powered. Maybe you have to fill up some kind of generator in order to get the bridge to come down. That still needs thought. It's a little whiles away. So because again we're focusing on that third map before starting on this Forest Part 2, because we're blocked by player models right now. And then additionally I put down possibly adding more stealth to the game as a whole. So I know some people think stealth doesn't exist in the game, and if you're not familiar with how the code of the enemy models or how the enemies work, I could see how you might think that there's no kind of stealth. However, there is some aspects of it. For example, the enemies have a hearing system, so whenever you walk or you run, they can hear you. And if you were to, like, let's say you theoretically crouch through a whole game, they may stalk your location. They'll stalk a general area around you, but they shouldn't run up directly to you. And for example, there's a few parts of it that are not so stealthy. Like, let's say if you bring out a flashlight, the code is actually working the same as if you were making noise. It's saying, hey, I'm here because I have my flashlight out. So if you were in the dark, you were crouching, and you played like that the whole game, you could effectively be stealthy. However, the problem is it doesn't really work that well right now, at least not in an intuitive way that makes sense for players. So for example, if you just start walking and you're about 10 meters away from the thing, it's going to hear you, and it's going to hear you the same amount as if you were running. Now that doesn't really work, because if you think about situations where, let's say the enemy was stalking a building, right, and they were looking around corners and you were kind of hiding right around the corner, but you started walking really slow, and then the enemy would run right to you, which kind of defeats the whole point of stealth if you just have to be, crouching the whole time a million miles away. Now the Apex sort of did it correctly. So like the Apex, it's only if you're walking around within 2,000 Unreal units from the Apex, then he'll hear your footsteps. But if it's a quieter sound, then he'll walk to that location rather than sprinting to it. And that made me realize that all the other enemies in the game could thus hear you walking from quite a distance away. So I'm thinking about going back and adding stealth mechanics to all of these enemies, making it in a way where you could really be stealthy in the entire game. Additionally, there are a few enemies that I designed always to know where you're at. So let's talk about, for example, the deer-headed enemy. So he has a sort of a weeping angel mechanic where if you look away from him, and he'll move, and if you look at him, he won't. Now the problem with this is if you pull out a gun, he'll charge you. Now the thing is, it's Nuclear Nightmare. 90% of the time you're walking around with a gun in your hand. So effectively, he just plays like an enemy that knows exactly where you're at all the time. And yeah, with him, there's no actual really being stealthy or getting away from him. So that just being said, I could go on about it for a while. I don't want to make this video too long. And if you play Nuclear Nightmare all the time, then you're probably familiar with all the stuff I'm talking about. So that's a thought for part 2. Or maybe even potentially in the next map, I could probably fit that in. If enough of you guys are in the comments and you say, or on Discord, and you say, hey, that sounds like a great idea, I'll do it without a doubt. That's why I just have the word possibly. Because to play devil's advocate right now, at the same time, you know, if it is nice having different behaviors and not every enemy acting the same. For example, the deer-headed enemy doing the weeping angel behavior, or we have the enemy with the larger head with the eyeball in the middle. He basically moves when you move. So at the time when we had less weapons, there was a time in development when we had just flamethrowers, and it kind of made sense. But as we added guns, we made them just charge you when you had a gun, because it was too easy to just not walk and shoot it. And yeah, anyway, so that's part 2 of the forest is what I'm thinking. Then the next map after the third one and after forest update part 2 is the underground ice caves and crevasse focus map. I think this will be the coolest map we've added so far. I'm personally really excited for this. So if you don't know, we don't sit in a room and go, okay, what's gonna make the most money? You know, how are we gonna make Nuclear Nightmare profit? More than it does now. We don't design the game like that. We design the game because we're fans of the game. We love playing it. That's how we've always made it. We've gone, okay, let's add something cool. Okay, jump in, we play it. Oh yeah, that was really fun, but hey, I think we should add this. So that being said, the idea I had was to do a crevasse, an underground cave system focused map. So if you look at these screenshots here on the right, these are real screenshots or images rather from Antarctica. And basically I would want the map to look exactly like this, right? So you would spawn at the bottom of one of these crevasses. And then inside that crevasse would also be underground cave systems that might look like this bottom screenshot you can see right here. And you could either choose to follow these cave systems or fly above the crevasses with a helicopter, for example, and come back down. And I even had the idea of maybe turning the pickaxe to a way that you could basically climb up a wall, like a true ice axe, to climb up and get on top of these crevasses. And I think that would be really cool. And then you have facilities within these larger crevasses and underground locations, so it will be largely facility based. And the coolest part about it is we want to make it on par with the size of Low Island. So you can just imagine this massive map with all these different crevasses and underground cave systems and then facilities within the walls. I'm really excited to see this one, bring this one to come to life. So yeah, that's all we got now for essentially the underground ice cave and crevasse focus map. It's still way down the pipeline. It's pretty much because I like to have our level designer start working on something at all times, so he's always got something to do, and then also it helps make the pipeline very fast, because if he's got maps in the pipeline, right, and then by the time he's finished with them, we're ready to start working on them. I can come in and do all the programming, set up everything that needs to be set up, and yeah, we can really get content out fast without having to ignore bugs and ignore improvements in QL. So that's what we got for that. And then, so I wanted to cover this as well. The next focus, I think, after we get enough maps, and I'm not saying this is we're gonna stop adding maps or something. I want it to be that we're always working on the next map. But there's going to be a certain point where we end up getting enough maps where it feels like, okay, the game has enough content. And when we get to that point, I do want to start focusing more on game modes. Because I mean, even after adding the forest map, it did feel more similar to the original map than I would have thought. And eventually, it's gonna get a bit old, just playing that same kind of game mode. Where you're just collecting classifieds the whole time. So I think there's, a need to expand and have different game modes that players can enjoy. One of them at the top of the list definitely being the Mimic Trader mode. I mean, this is one thing that's been requested since the game originally came out. We wanted to kind of weave it in with the existing game mode where you can collect classifieds, but it just wouldn't work with all the different scenarios. Because basically, if you have a gun, right, and you are the Mimic Trader, and your goal is to basically kill everybody, why not just pick up a gun and shoot everybody? If you're not gonna, if you just like, okay, my only objective is to get rid of the whole team. So why do I play as a monster and chase them around when that's harder than just getting a gun and shooting everybody? So that being said, it definitely needs to be its own true game mode. Maybe the game mode would remove all weapons, and basically you would just have a much more stripped down version where the focus is on the player. So maybe we don't have enemies spawn in, and it's just you and this player. Still needs to be flushed out, and this is a lot lower priority, and that's why I have it down the timeline here. But I just wanted to give you guys kind of a perspective into what we're thinking long term for design. I think at the beginning we didn't quite know where it would end up. What was the end focus for Nuclear Nightmare, and I think over the past month or so, I've kind of had this realization that I think this is the direction that would be the best for Nuclear Nightmare long term. And again, that doesn't just include trader mode. That could include any objective mode. So maybe it's to go recover craft or something, and it's a lot more in depth, right? Where you have to kind of put it back on the back of this vehicle, and you got to get it out of the ice and everything. Just a lot cooler kind of objectives than what we have right now, I think, in terms of gameplay. Additionally, in terms of the next focus, other than just game modes, another one would be creating more robust world settings. So right now, you don't have, you have a lot of control over the world settings, and I think it is what makes the game what it is, because it gives so much quality of life that you're able to scale the game in whatever difficulty you want. But I think we can make it even more robust to the point where people can kind of make their own game modes within the world settings. So exposing things like how temperature works, exposing more in-depth functionality behind enemy spawns, and that sort of thing. Creating it in a more modular way that could be more streamlined across the board. Then of course, remastering unoriginal or low quality assets and animations. So obviously, since this game was originally created by myself as just a passion project, there are a few store assets in there, right, that need to be redone, or they're just lower quality, right, and they're just being kind of put together in a way that works, but it doesn't look the best, and it was because of we didn't have the people to create that newer stuff. Now, a lot of this will get changed. I think a lot of this is really just the player models and player animations, so it will naturally get changed before enough maps are added. That's going to kind of be hand in hand with the player models, but I mean more in the sense of let's go back and have a look at I don't know, okay, like the jerry can model, right? Does the jerry can, could we make the jerry can look better, or could we make the glow stick look better, that sort of thing. So one thing I also want to do is adding more variety to the default enemy spawn pool. Given that we want to go in the direction of adding a new boss enemy on each map that is unique to each map, I think, because before I wanted to go in the direction of where every single enemy was perfectly brand new for each map. But I think if we do that, it's going to kind of take away from the overall feel of the game. I think it may make it feel like you're kind of playing too much of a different game on each map. You know, we still want it to kind of feel like the same game, but be unique in its own way, that it can stand on its 2 feet in each map. So, and additionally, you know, but the problem with that is we don't want it to get boring, right? You don't want to just keep waiting for the next Nuclear Nightmare update and we keep dropping new maps and then all you get is one new enemy. So I think the way to not have that problem and then additionally keep the whole game fresh as a whole is keep adding more variety to the default enemy spawn pool that is seen across each map, instead of just having only unique enemies to each individual map, right? And then also having dynamically changing enemy models based on damage dealt. So this is a suggestion I actually got from a fan, and I really love the idea. He was saying basically that it'd be really cool to see if you shot an enemy, let's say you shotgunned the enemy, it didn't die, and it ran away or something, to have its model actually change where you can see the visible effects of what you did to that enemy. So let's say, for example, the body is split in half, and after you shoot it, but it's still running around and it can still attack you. You know, just making it feel a bit more virus-like, a bit more mutant, organic-like, because I think right now they feel a bit more animalistic. They're a bit too whole as one, except for the head spider that jumps off of them. Other than that, I would like to make it a lot more dynamic and an organic feeling. So QO and major bug fixes included in the next update. I put this here because I just wanted people to know that we are still focusing on bugs. Just because we want to add new content doesn't mean that a bunch of new bugs are going to get introduced, or it doesn't mean that the current game is just going to be the same as it is now and it's never going to change. Actually, adding the forest map was one of the best things we ever did, because it made me take a deeper look into the performance and solve some major performance problems with the game as a whole that I couldn't figure out when we just had the one map. So don't look at us adding content as a bad thing when it comes to optimization or bug fixes. It can seriously help us solve a lot of issues. Now, there's whole lot of stuff on here that I think is going to be pretty boring to talk about. You know, like the door interaction bug, ammo numbers not matching the bomb, spawned items, etc. But I think one thing that I want to highlight, you know, if you want to read it, feel free to pause the video. These are just the major ones I thought were major that I listed here. I'm sure there's still other bugs that are in there. I'm not saying this is the only bugs that ever exist, but these are the major ones that I think need to be fixed immediately. Now, so that being said, one of the things I want to highlight here is the voice chat bugs. So, or I guess some of them are bugs, and then some of them are just bad design, really. For example, now this is mainly in part due to Unreal, because Unreal's default voice chat functionality is pretty poor, so it's been one of the greatest struggles of making the game. And then additionally, audio programming in itself is a whole area that, you know, specific programmers focus in. So the Nuclear Nightmare was actually my first time ever programming any kind of audio system. So it's been definitely a challenge, but I think I'm at the area or the level of expertise now where I should try to tackle it. So I want to have a look at that this next update to really truly focus on the peaking and adding some kind of equalization on the volume of the player, because sometimes you can just scream in the mic and it just goes, you know, breaks the eardrums, and that's immersion breaking. And then overall, just the different things like the volume sounds not quite working well, or the sliders rather, It feels like sometimes you can only adjust it to a certain level, which isn't fun because if somebody's really quiet, you want to be able to 5x their sound rather than right now, which only feels like you might be able to do 1.5 times the original sound. Um, so yeah, and then there's also a few instances of where you respawn and the voice chat doesn't work. We haven't been able to personally replicate this one. I truly think this one might be more tied to the UI, because for example, there are times when your mic is technically on, but it gets rid of the UI because you're being respawned, and then you think it's off and you turn it off, and then you try to talk and it doesn't work. So anyway, we'll find out what it is and look into it. I just wanted to highlight this is one area that hasn't been looked into it as much that I think we finally got time to do a big deep dive onto, just like how we did with performance overall. So yeah, anyway, I think that about does it here for the next roadmap. Now, is this a roadmap for all time? No, of course not. This is just a more near-term look at what we're doing with Nuclear Nightmare, where we want to take it, what are the overall focuses, and the kind of timeline for next updates. Because I haven't done one of these in a while, and a lot of stuff has changed. I definitely, there's definitely more things I want to put on here. That being said, like for example, different style maps. I think it would be really cool to get in some maps that aren't your typical Nuclear Nightmare maps. Like have we talked about maybe doing like an abandoned town or something in the past. But I think it's key to first get in a number of maps that respect the original inspiration first before doing that, and then after that, I think once we have enough content that respects the original inspiration, then we can have some fun with doing a bit more crazy styled maps. But yeah, I just want to thank everybody for still supporting Nuclear Nightmare. I know things have been kind of rocky in the past with just how development's being ran and everything. But you got to understand that this is my first time leading a team. If you had a game that you just made as a passion project and then it completely exploded and turned it into this big thing, and then you tried running a team at the same time, it's not easy. It's not a task that you can just kind of breeze into without, especially when you're wearing so many hats already. Such as doing all the programming and whatnot. I thought that me having more people on the team would automatically equal we can work 10 times as fast. However, it doesn't. There's a lot of time that it may even slow down development to a certain point because you have to spend more time managing those people and working with those people rather than just being able to kind of speed run everything yourself. So yeah, but either way, guys, I want to thank everybody for supporting Nuclear Nightmare. We're going to keep doing this thing till the wheels fall off. So let me know what you'd like to see, and let me know your thoughts on the roadmap. Have a good day, everybody. Bye.